Today I'm going to talk about dried beans. I know this series is mostly about fresh fruits and vegetables, but the dried beans is such an important component of diet that I wanted to include it in the series. So I want to show you some of the variety that you can purchase right down here. We have the small red beans, there's also large red beans. There's navy beans, there's kidney beans, there's black beans, there's lima beans, and these are the baby ones, and there's the mom and daddy ones. And then this is my favorite one, it's called a mix. Now, when we have these foods, they are very important because they are the first food that was actually preserved. You know, they shelled the beans and they saved them and they dried them. So when you open the bags, they usually come in plastic. Plastic is perforated. It actually does allow things to dry out. So after you've opened a bag, I always put the leftovers into jars. And you know, they just sit on the shelves. If you have quite a few bags of beans, you might want to get a large glass container and put them all in there, in their plastic bags. The thing I like glass things because then I don't forget what I have. So I'm going to show you the basics, and of course I'm going to show you the two easy ways to get the dried beans back to where we can eat them. So I have a cup of the mixed beans, called bean soup it is, and what you first do is I'm going to do about a cup because I want about 4 cups of beans. So you go through and you look to see if you can see any little balls of dirt, if you can see any beans that are kind of mushed up or something, and these look really great. Back in the old days, like not too long ago, you had to really look for the dirt because as the beans get cleaned, the little dirt balls would be made. And then the next thing you do, you need to rinse them off. They have dust on them, so you want to put them in a colander. And then you want to take it to the sink and you want to put the water over it, and then you want to swish your hands around in it to be sure it gets all clean and it's in the colander so the water's going through it and it'll take out most of the dirt. And then we have 2 easy ways that we can make it into beans we can eat. The easiest way is you bring back your beans and you put them into a pot or a bowl. I like to put mine in a bowl. This is my bean making bowl. And what they come out to be is like this. Look how fat they are. If you take one of these, and let's compare it to one of the ones that was in the little dry thing. This is when it was dry, and this is when it's fat. It's about 4 times bigger than it was. This is because I let it sit overnight. After I got them washed, I put them in the container. I added 4 cups of water, I put the lid on, and I let it do its job while I was sleeping. Now, the most frustrating part about dried beans is we forget to put them on the night before, or we don't know that we need to do it the night before. So I'm going to show you the next easiest way. So I bring my beans from the colander, I put that in there, now they're all clean, and then I add about 4 cups of water, and I have to use this pan, because it's the one that fits inside my pressure cooker. Now, this makes pressure cooking the beans makes it really easy. And I have covered my beans, and then down the side of my pan, let's see if I can do this. Whoops. You can do this before you put the bowl in, but I wanted to show you how I do it. I bring the water up to halfway up the side of my bowl. I put that on the flame after I put on the lid. Now this is the reason, to me, this is the reason to buy the pressure cooker, is just to do beans. If I only did it for this, let me see if I can get this on. Here we go. And you lock the lid on with your handles. Now, you put the flame on, or the electricity if you have an electric range. And the bad thing about these is if you have the solid tops stoves, some of those stoves say you cannot use pressure cookers or pressure canners, so be sure and read your directions. But after I let this vent, it'll start venting. I let it vent for 10 minutes. There'll be a bunch of steam coming out. What did I do my little? Let it vent for about 10 minutes, you put this on, and once it gets up to steam, you cook it about 30 minutes and your beans are done. After the cooking and the cooling, as you notice my button's gone down, you remove the gadget to be sure that there's no more steam coming out. Then you open the pan, and what you have done in 1 hour is that you have made dried beans into cooked beans, ready to use now as a meal by itself, using your recipes, or to freeze for later. Now, if you don't want the gassiness of beans, after you have soaked them this way, the best thing to do is to throw away the water, because most of the chemicals that cause the gassiness are come out into the water. That's one advantage of soaking overnight, and then start with new water while you're cooking. The other thing to remember is if you don't want mushy beans, especially those that you cook a long time, if you don't want them to be mushy, you want to add some sugar. That's the reason why baked beans have sugar in them, is so that they don't get mushy and they still look like beans. Sugar prevents mushiness. Now, if you don't want them to be tough, you don't want to put your acids in. A lot of people add tomatoes. Tomatoes are acid. You don't want to add a lot of salt. You add the salt after you've cooked them. And that keeps your stuff from being tough, and so that you can have tasty beans. There is a reputation with beans that, you know, it's like the old-fashioned food, but it is one of the most nutritious foods. It is one of the best things to add to your menu because it is so economical. Now, beans have a protein in them, but to make the protein a complete protein that our body needs, you always serve beans with a starch. There's cornstarch, like tortillas in the Mexican culture. You know, there is spaghetti in the Italian culture, and you can add beans to your tomato sauce, those kinds of things. So be sure that you add a starch along with it. You know, red beans and rice was one of the things I grew up a lot when I was growing up, and I love red beans and rice. And the rice makes the beans into a whole protein. In fact, my mother made beans at least once a week. We love beans. So try the beans. They do come in the cans already cooked for you, and that's going to be another show, and I'll show you how to take care of those. But beans are essential to our diet, and especially when we're trying to watch our menu planning so that we have a basic diet that's economical. So go to my website and check it out.